The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm here with Art Snarzyk. Art, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Michael.
I'm excited for this, Art. So you are an employee selection and management specialist. You're also president of Interview Advisors, where you help small and mid-sized businesses around the world to attract, screen, hire, and then develop high-performing employees. You've given yourself the name of Chief Turnover Terminator. How did that name come about?
That was a funny name given to me from a client of mine. They called me the Turnover Terminator. And then a business magazine here in St. Louis picked up on that and said, I heard I needed to talk to you. You're the Turnover Terminator. And they kind of dialed me up on the cover of the magazine to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm really not that intimidating, Michael. So, but I'm going to ride that as far as it'll go.
Very good. So tell us a little bit more about what you do and kind of what your business is all about.
So we do help with attraction, selection, managing ideal people. We're not a stereotypical recruiting firm. We're consultants, and we want to train the people inside of a business how to be better at identifying who they need for their own culture, for their own office. So instead of being generic about it and saying that all financial advisors need this kind of person or all consultants need an admin assistant like this, then we really want to hone in on those traits and attributes and skills that are really necessary for your own specific office, and then set you up to make great hires and manage those people really well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you got started, or if we go back, some years ago, you were the co-owner of a painting company. Is that correct?
That's true. Yeah, it's quite a leap.
Right. Tell us about that. Like, what did you do, or kind of like what did you learn in those early years when you're running a painting company that kind of helped you to build your expertise around hiring and reducing employee turnover?
Well, I just saw the same theme throughout all of my careers. I took an interesting path to get here, I think, as many people do. But before painting, I was in pharmaceuticals, and then I started a painting company. So I left corporate to start my own business with a friend of mine. And in both of those, in the corporate world and in my own business, people have always been a challenge, is understanding who's the right person for me. And, that person has a lot of skills and experience and background, but they came and they worked here and they just didn't work out. What was the problem? So I got introduced to really cool behavioral assessments and tools when I was in my painting company. And as soon as I did, my mind was open to, you can discover all kinds of things about people and really make richer decisions, not only just for hiring, but it helped me just dealing with customers in sales. But how do I deal with other types of people, and how do I understand them more quickly? And so I fell in love with the science of that, and was encouraged to start my own business by the guy who introduced me to it. So I was foolish enough to do it, and here I am.
Right. It's interesting because, you're right. You hear this theme over and over again that hiring and really, maintaining and for the long term, like top employees or even just working with good quality people that you can trust is a challenge for many people. Maybe share with us, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see business owners making when it comes to employee selection and engagement and kind of, job matching, all the kind of the core areas that are involved in finding and bringing on talent?
You want all of it, Michael?
Well, break it down. Just the big ones. Just the big ones. I know there's a lot more than we can cover in the podcast here today, but
sure,
some of the more common ones would be great.
The biggest mistake that I see everybody make is just not enough clarity about what the job entails and what kind of person. I like to think of the hiring as the who and the do, right? So just because someone can do that kind of work doesn't mean they're necessarily who they need to be in order to do that work with you. And I find that we usually hire based on what they have done in the past and what they can do. And then we usually fire people based on who they are. So I flip that on its head a little bit. I want to know, what are they going to do, of course, but then what kind of person is going to be perfect doing that role for you specifically, or your company or department? Who fits best for you? And I think without that clarity up front, we just go and we post an ad that says admin assistant needed. Instead of saying, I need a tenacious admin who's going to push me and say, get off that phone call. You have another one in 4 seconds, or I need that friendly one who's going to warm up my clients before I talk to them. So that clarity about what they're going to do and who they need to be up front drives what kind of ad you should write to attract those kinds of people. It drives what kind of questions you should ask during the interview to make sure you caught the right fish, and ultimately how you're going to manage that person too.
And when you talk about like the attributes, the characteristics, the type of person that they are, how should someone start thinking about identifying, what are those attributes or what are those characteristics? Where does someone even start to make the decision about what the right ones are that they should then, put into the job description and think about in terms of developing questions?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So if audience member is familiar with a certain type of assessment tool that they like using, then
like a DISC or a Colby or something like that?
Absolutely. DISC is one of those foundational ones that I use. I like to use a multiple of assessments to measure not just their behavioral style, but their skill sets and things. But really think about, is this an introvert or an extrovert? Are they very talkative or just kind of warm? What kind of skill set are they going to need? Do they have to be really great with time management? And most businesses say yes whenever I'm helping to benchmark a certain position. But I stay away from the real generic ones like humble, because I find that many salespeople wouldn't self-identify as humble. And that's okay. It doesn't make them wrong. But watch when you put those kinds of words in your ads, because you're going to attract a certain kind of person. Here's something interesting. Empathy sounds like something we really want in people working around us. But when I put together a benchmark for positions in management or above, we usually, in a benchmark, is just kind of like, what are the targets for these traits? Empathy is usually a very low score, 4 or under. We find that if they have too much empathy, they have a hard time laying off this department because Mary's been here a long time. She's got 3 kids. So just because it sounds good to you, I want you to make sure you let the job tell you what it needs, not just what you think sounds good in a person that works near you.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think the clarity part is so important because you're right. I mean, we've experienced ourselves in our business that sometimes you rush to this, like once you make the decision, I want to hire for this position or bring on a contractor or whatever it is, then it's okay, let's just go and find that person. And sometimes just with the excitement of now that you've made the decision, you go and try and find them, but you haven't actually clearly defined, who do you really want and what are the characteristics and what are the traits? And as you said, what kind of person are they, not just what they can do. So I think that's a really great share there. And I appreciate that, Art. How about now that you know that and you've identified that those are important things to look at, how do you work that into a job description? What are maybe some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making when it comes to a job description? And what are some of the things that people should definitely make sure that they do?
The only big mistake I see with the job description is sometimes it's too much of a description. And I'd rather, instead of it be a job description saying you're going to use QuickBooks to enter receipts and then push this button and do that, instead of describing the job in that way, I'd rather that they thought, what are the key accountabilities of the role? What are the key impact points? How do you impact the business with that behavior? We know you're going to use QuickBooks and all that stuff, but the business doesn't require us to hire somebody to run QuickBooks. The business requires us. It needs good financial, solid data every month. So I don't care which button you push in QuickBooks, but your key responsibility to the organization is to make sure that we have up-to-date, accurate reports for the shareholders on the 31st of every month. So instead of the description itself, really hone in on why. Why are we doing that thing in the first place? And why does the business care if the business were a person?
Yeah, that makes sense. So here's something that I've learned. I'd love to get your perspective on it. When you're looking for, let's say, if it's an administrative assistant or really any role that requires detail and you want to make sure that people are able to follow instructions and just be very focused, on what you're looking for, is to kind of embed specific requests, very detailed requests into the job description. So for example, if you say, please send this to Mike, then anyone that doesn't respond and say, hi, Mike, or dear Mike, they're automatically gone. Or you put in there to say, respond and tell me about your favorite color or favorite place that you've traveled. Or when you respond to this specific question, do it in this font, make sure that you do it within 3 lines. Like, so it's very specific questions that someone who's just trying to send out as many resumes as possible and isn't really paying close attention, they would miss those things. And that would then help you to kind of, apply a quick layer of qualification to essentially disqualify a lot of the applications that you might receive. What are your thoughts on things like that?
Well, I do those, so I guess I'm biased toward it, but there are a few that I do. But it really just make sure that you're clear up front, because if you're not clear about who you need and you try to make a networking salesperson, a marketing person jump through those hoops, then you're going to miss some really good ones.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
So make those hoops, the really specific detailed ones. Make sure you're looking for, an IT guy or whatever, a real analyst. But one thing I like to do so that I don't get overwhelmed with just people, listen, there are still people out there who apply to everything and it's frustrating. But I always say, please apply. We'll review any resume that comes with a cover letter or 2 sentences telling us what you liked about this job ad.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I think what you just said there about making sure that if you're going to use that kind of advice or approach, as I just mentioned, that it needs to be for the right type of position. Because you're right. Like if you're looking for a marketing person or maybe a salesperson, then those kind of specifics that just might not fit their, the characteristics of a successful salesperson as an example. So that makes a lot of sense. Let's now look at your business for a moment, Art. You've been running Interview Advisors for, I believe, about 8 years, since 2012. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
What's working best for you now when it comes to marketing and generating leads and opportunities and new clients for your business?
It's the same thing that's always worked, and nobody's going to want to hear it, but it is word of mouth and networking. But I knew going in with my painting business and even in the corporate world that folks get most of their business or a good chunk of it through these referrals. And when I started this, I was advised, and I think other consultants listening will know that people just don't go to your website and then say, well, yeah, I'm hiring that consultant. There has to be a connection. There has to be some other way in. So when I started this, I spent a lot of time and money and effort learning how do I build those referrals on purpose and not just wait by the phone and hope somebody refers me. It's been a real strategy of mine, and I take pride that I do that at a higher level.
And so what does that look like? Let's walk us through, kind of give us some insight into your approach to referrals, because a lot of people, I would say most people out there, most consultants, when they think of referrals, they think of, I'll wait till someone contacts me, like I'm just going to focus on doing good work, and therefore I should be able to receive new business opportunities and new people reaching out to me. But it sounds like you have a much more intentional, much more proactive approach to referrals. So what does it actually look like?
So, Michael, I help contractors attract, hire, and develop ideal people so they don't feel alone building their business. And what I just gave you was a formula that people can take away. And I learned it from Virginia Muski's The Referral Diva. She's amazing. And I spent a lot of money with her and it was worth it. But it was really, you need to be able to first be unafraid to be this focused on your message. But secondly, you need to be able to tell pretty concisely, who do you serve? What problem do you solve for those people? And how do you want them to feel when you're finished? That feeling is sometimes, traded out with like an impact or what are you going to do for their business? But I know that people buy on emotion, so I like the feeling. So when I say I help contractors attract and hire better people so they don't feel like they're building their business alone, I hit all 3 of those points and you know exactly who to refer me to. What's interesting is I've said that same message for the last 8 years and only 31% of my business are contractors, because the attorneys that hear that, they say, wait a minute, I'm not a contractor, but I need to attract and hire better people so I don't feel alone. Or they'll say, I'm neither of those. I feel alone in my business, but could you help me? So it's very interesting that it's this breadth of business you get from being so specific.
I mean, that's such a powerful message, because I think a lot of people are scared to be specific for that exact reason. Like the fear of, if I only say that I'm working with contractors, what about the rest of the world and all the other business owners that I can help? But the example and what you've seen, your experience has been that even though you are very specific in your messaging, that still is bringing you opportunities beyond just that market that you're focusing on. And that's okay. You're fine with that. If you weren't, right? If you only want to work with contractors, that might be different, but you're able and open and wanting to work with others. So it actually works out very well for you.
Yeah. And listen, the example comes from Virginia when she says, just send me a picture anytime you see a red Cadillac CTS. And it's just so specific that when you see a black Cadillac CTS, you think of Virginia and you wonder, does she want that too? So, that's the first part of it, is understanding how you're going to market. But then who sees contractors who are going to have that hiring problem and want to feel that way just by going to work today and not even trying? I'll tell you, if I did this with my painting business, I would have made more friends with hairstylists, because I know that people who are getting their houses painted are usually maybe middle-aged women who are financially secure, and they go to the stylist. So I would be networking with hairstylists like crazy and make $1 million.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early-stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Hey, it's Michael here, and we'll be right back to the podcast. But first, are you ready to grow, scale, and take your consulting business and marketing to the next level? If so, our Clarity Coaching program may be a great fit for you. You'll work with our experienced team to set up a strategic plan for your business and coach you step by step in areas like how to consistently attract more leads, develop a magnetic message that resonates with your ideal clients, strategically package and position your services, earn higher fees, win more proposals, and scale your business. To find out more about Clarity Coaching and apply, go to consultingsuccess.com and click on coaching. So you've shared the messaging part of this, which is obviously core to generating referrals. What about the actual activities, the actions? Are you reaching out to people like on a regular basis? Do you have an approach to doing that? Just walk us through kind of what your referral system is.
Yeah, so it's really after you start to identify that. And so now we know who I like to serve, but we also know who those golden geese are. I like to feed the geese. So just making sure that I'm calling them routinely and saying, what's your biggest goal or challenge that you're working on, and how can I put my head around that? Maybe it's one of my clients needs them. Maybe they just need a referral to another resource. But I built a network of other people, I guess, that I've just been in touch with and connect with. And the ones that I know are my golden geese, I'm going to have a communication plan with.
Sorry, just to jump in, are these like past clients or current clients, or these are just other people that might not even be clients, but refer you business? Like, who are these people?
Yeah, so typically my best referral partners are going to be other coaches, consultants, because they're helping in strategy ways and I'm helping in human dynamics ways. Marketing people actually create the problem I solve if they're any good at it. And sometimes the CPAs and accountants, they're a little slower to pass referrals, but if you stay with them and nurture them, they can be loudmouths for your business. But those people who solve other business problems that are not in the human dynamics, those are who I want to make friends with, because they're just going to bump into people and hear the problem I solve from their clients or people on the street.
Right. And how did you even go about creating relationships with those people? Like, what was your initial point of contact and initial message to them?
There's many ways you can do it. My style is more of a warm one. So I did it through networking, just through local events. I joined a BNI chapter, Business Networking International, when I was smaller in business, and just a variety of other types of, if I mention them, you might not know them not being in my area, but just other various business groups where we get together. And I think you could have success at the Chamber of Commerce. Just profile where you're going. The Chamber of Commerce is more of like a community place. They may not be passing business today. The BNI, they're passing business. So just kind of profile, where am I going to go and who's going to be there and who can I meet when I'm there? And then how do I meet two of those people, coaches, marketers, CPAs, when I'm there and set up a coffee outside of this so we can talk about each other's business?
Okay, so the first point of contact is meeting them at an actual event face to face. Then the next step is to meet for a coffee, again, face to face, building the relationship. You mentioned that you are calling to kind of check in, seeing what's going on. If you can add some value, you're not looking to sell to them directly because they're not necessarily going to buy what you have to offer, but they might know others. What's the frequency of your kind of touch points with them, making those phone calls or sending those emails? How frequently are you doing that?
So like everybody, not as frequently as I should, but
Yeah.
there's a really good book on this. It's called The 7 Levels of Communications by Michael Mayer. And it was written by a realtor for other realtors, but really has a really nice communication plan and strategy. Like, how do I grade my database of people and who are A players, who are B players, and how often should I be in contact with them? But he has a lot of, I'll tell you what, if you read that book, I implemented 4 of his strategies my first year and just really took off. So along with a few other things. But how often should you do it? If they're big connectors and they're passing you a lot of leads, then you should be in touch with them more often. If they're more of a friendship relationship, maybe annually, maybe every 6 months. You determine that frequency depending on how many people. I think the core of it, though, Michael, is that people that know you and like you, they want to refer you. It's your job to teach them how and to stay top of mind.
Yep. So key. How do you track all this? Are you using a certain CRM or tool to stay on top of who to follow up with and when?
Nope. No. I have a spreadsheet of my database of folks, but really it's low tech, and I'm embarrassed to share. It's a spreadsheet with this caliber of group.
But it works.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right? Is if it works for you, then it's good. You also speak though, right? I mean, how big is speaking in terms of your lead generation? Would you say that that's also a pretty big part, or how does it kind of play into your marketing mix?
Yeah. So I get all of my business through speaking or referrals and networking. So it's those two things. And speaking just allows me to connect with many people at once. So, when you're listening to a great speaker, I'm a good speaker, but when you're listening to a great one, you feel connected with that person. You feel like you know them already. You might go listen to another podcast about them. So it's just a cool way to go into a group and talk to 30 people at one time instead of, one-on-one coffees.
Yeah. Let's talk about a bit more detail around this, speaking. How did you, if you kind of go back to when you first got started, Art, how did you actually go about getting those speaking engagements?
I think you have to teach people. Like I said, people want to refer you. So here's a question that I'll ask sometimes. So I help with hiring and team development, and I also give presentations to business groups. And sometimes I'll ask this question: where's the last time you heard of a really good business presentation? And they'll tell you about it, and they'll tell you about the presentation. You'll learn some things. And then this is a place I should either go check out for myself, or maybe this person just heard that I like to speak and they're just going to say, hey, I know the person that puts on the speakers there. Can I introduce you? So that's always a nice thing. So it's our responsibility to teach somebody else how to look out for us and to kind of comb through their own database. Where have you heard a great business presentation recently?
Right. So you ask that question, that can start to create new opportunities, or for you to identify where to maybe go and speak, or maybe, as you said, that person knows someone there. And now that they know that you're interested, it's like if they don't know that what you want, then it's hard for them to help you to make it happen.
Yeah. And really prepare them. I guess if you can do something like this, I'll usually say during some of my one-to-one meetings, I'll say, if you hear that somebody's hiring or they've just hired and they don't want to screw it up, just keep me in mind. I don't have to punch a clock to take a call from one of your friends. So, but I plant in their head, if you hear this thing, think of me. And I think that's on us to do for people. If you hear that a group needs a speaker, keep me in mind.
Mm-hmm. All right. So some people might be listening going, well, all these things that you're talking about right now in terms of speaking and having coffees and conversations and, going to networking, it all sounds like it takes so much time. How do you actually have the time to work in the business, delivering and serving clients? what percentage would you say of your overall time is spent on marketing and kind of building the business as opposed to actually doing client delivery and work?
Yeah, so I saw that, that those curves kind of cross a little bit in the earlier days when there's more time and less money. You network more. And I remember the days where it was 80%. I'd be out at some networking events or having 6 or 8 coffees a week, and I was wired.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I might have 3 coffees in a week, but there's always a lunchtime. So have it with someone else if you can, and then making a few calls. So I bet in the earlier days, we were probably looking at 70, 80%. And nowadays it's probably 30 to maybe even as low as 15 some weeks. And then I start feeling bad because I know what's going to happen to my business in a month or 2 from now.
Talk about that for a moment, because it's so true. Like what you do today, right, is not going to create what you see tomorrow. It's going to create what you see in 3 months or 6 months down the road. So what's your experience been with that?
Well, miserable in pharmaceuticals because I held this sales position and I oversaw this inventory of hospitals and pharmacies across the country. And the guy I reported to, I brought some numbers to our meeting one week. And I remember he said, well, based on these numbers, you should probably close your division in about 7 weeks. And man, that stuck with me. I wanted to jump across the table at the time, but he knew that based on these numbers today, that really does affect what's going to happen. And so I start feeling antsy. It's nice that we're getting those paychecks and we have all that volume of work that we have to put out. But if you don't put some time blocks, some specific blocking in your calendar to say, these are the times I'm going to do some employee development, and these are the times I'm going to do some networking, then it'll just fall off the radar and you'll get too busy doing stuff.
Yeah, so true. It's the analogy I always like to use with when coaching clients is really like you're planting seeds, right? When you plant seeds for whether it's for a vegetable or a flower, you don't get the end result. You don't get the flower or the carrots the next day or even the next week, right? It can take a month or 2 months or 3 months depending on what you're planting. But the more that you plant now and the more consistently that you plant and the more that you water and make sure that it has sunshine, everything that it needs, right? Then you're going to get the result that you want. And of course, your crop might not be 100%, full, and different things happen. The environment changes, but be much better off if you're planting the seeds today and consistently doing so, rather than just hoping that what you have is going to carry you on for a long time to come.
And I think what you said about the watering and, pulling the weeds, that's the part nobody likes doing. Going to the networking event, it's not always fun depending on which style of person you are. But, that's my style. Whether you're doing this in person like I do, or you're doing it digitally or through LinkedIn connections, I don't think it matters much, but you do have to, if you just go plant a seed and then you leave it there, the seed rots, and it's like, oh, I remember that person. They stunk. They only came around when they needed something. And so if you don't stay in touch, it's never going to bloom.
Yeah, definitely. Let's just talk about assessments for a little bit here. Take the consultant that maybe has 1 or 2 people on their team. They want to grow their business. They don't yet feel that they're at a place where they can go in and hire a firm to help them kind of like walk them through all of that process. What would you say to that person? Like, is there one specific assessment or one tool or one kind of framework or approach that they should be focused on or use that could really help them to identify the right hire, the right person to bring onto the team?
I have a hard time with that, Michael, because I think, I'm a skeptic of all this stuff. So I really study it hard. I found that TTI, Target Training International, has really done a fantastic job of taking a few different assessments and kind of blending them together. So we're talking about DISC, which is how do people prefer to behave? And then their motivators. Why do they act that way? What are they trying to accomplish? Are they going to love this business here? And then they take soft skills like time management and personal accountability, emotional intelligence. I think we'll soon be able to use that in hiring. We're starting to demonstrate that EQ isn't developed over time and age like we once thought it was. I think the data is starting to show that. So if I could pick any of them, I think emotional intelligence is really the game changer in all of us. Are you aware of who you are and what you're doing to other people? But there's just so much to people that I don't think there's enough in one assessment to get the full picture of how complex and rich and unique people are.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Art, and really appreciate you coming on here. I want to make sure that people can learn more about you and your work and everything else that you have going on. So where's the best place for them to go?
I love the website, of course, Interview Advisors, INNER, viewadvisors.com. You can also call anytime, 314-282-9632. And I don't have to punch a clock to take a call or answer an email.
There we go. Fantastic. Well, Art, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.